Hello, it's Ruby, and in today's video I am going to be setting up my personal curriculum for the new year. I did one of these last year, and last year I experimented with a personal curriculum. So every single month I would choose a topic and then I would create a reading list around that topic, and over the course of the month, or like 6 weeks, I would learn about that. So I learned about juvenilia, I learned about tragedy, I learned about birds, like UK birds, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I've got to say it did kind of peter off though towards the end of the year because I got busy with other projects and the curriculum sort of fell to the wayside in the wake of that, which was not good. Hopefully this year's will be a little bit more successful. I've been looking forward to this all week and I'm going to set my topics, my curriculum for the next 4 months. But first let's go get some tea, because you always need tea. I think I'm going to go for a green tea. I have this tea a ridiculous amount. It's probably my most drunk tea. It's just a very good basic. Now, of course, the first point of call is to actually decide on the topics. I did go to a coffee shop yesterday and I made a note of what things I wanted to think about. So I should find that. So for September, my module is going to be on the Victorians, and I know that is such a broad topic, but I am going to break it down. And my plan at the moment is that this module is going to be 4 weeks, but I might turn it into 6 depending on like how much the workload will be for every week. And then I plan on having a second module which is going to be on the history of manifestation, because I've just been really interested in it recently and I want to learn more about it. But the main one is the Victorians. I also just love the Victorians, and so it's more an opportunity for me to like focus on aspects of the Victorians that I haven't previously focused on. So as last time, I am going to go on to Notion and create my reading list. And I think this time I'm going to print it out as well, so I have a physical reading list, like curriculum, like you would when you're starting a new module at university. I just started by reviewing what I had already written in the coffee shop in this notebook, and I added a little bit more detail because it was still quite broad and I wanted the module to have a more specific aim. I've written out a loose plan. And now we're actually going to make this curriculum. There is going to be a lot of thinking as we're going as well, because I don't actually quite know yet what I want to do. I should probably make up my mind first. Notion is my personal favourite place to plan curricula, just because you can change around all of the blocks very easily. Like, it's a very versatile, dynamic platform, and so I started by writing these very loose bullet points of the module aims and the things I wanted to gain from it. I've just made a working sense of what I want to go over, but I have actually decided to not do manifestation in September and to look at Frances Hodgson Burnett instead. My task list, and now I'm going to do one for my second module, and as you can see there is just a tag on the side to show which week each of the tasks is for, so that I can easily organise it. So I then went through and transferred this to my academic planner. So in the academic planner, every single month has a weekly breakdown, and so I transferred the tasks into this so it would all be together in one place and I could easily consult it when creating my to-do list. A little bit messy because I made a mistake here, but that is my overview of the month. As you can see, it's much kind of heavier in terms of workload in the first 2 weeks because I'm busier in the last 2 weeks. And with that done, I made my reading list. Google Scholar is always my main point of call with this because it's an academic search engine and it will pull up all of the academic articles and books and things. So I just searched for some keywords and then kind of added them in a new tab so I could review them afterwards. As you can see, I've just added all of these research essays in the top tab, and essentially I'm just going to go through and read the abstracts of all of these and decide which ones actually look good enough to add to my reading list. And I'm just going to quickly make a coffee as well, I think. just made my reading list and I'm now going to print everything here and I can stick it in my notebook. So this is my curriculum that I printed. And I think I'm going to stick this on the first page of this notebook. Actually, I'm not going to stick it in. I've cut it down, but instead I'm going to pop it in the back pocket of this notebook because then I can just change it out every month, because obviously this is only for 1 month. This is going to be my latest commonplace book and I'm going to use it as kind of a half media journal and half research commonplace book. I really enjoy trying out new methods for note taking, and so we're going to give this a go and use it as like my exercise book when I'm learning about each of these modules. It's a Loic Term 1917 and I really like these because of the index at the front and the fact that all of the pages are numbered. I kind of want to add some gold foiling to the front, but I don't know what I want to write on it. I do have a few of my favourite Latin phrases in my commonplace book here, and so I might just see if there's anything there that I want to add. I like sapere aud. I don't know how I can't speak Latin at all. Oh, scientia infusa, which is infused knowledge. I quite like infused knowledge, but I want to look into actually what it means and like where it came from before I put it on the front of here. Because sometimes phrases are used and you don't know where they were used, and then they actually have like a not very nice meaning. Oh, I think it's Christian. I think it's a Catholic phrase. Oh, it's divine essence. It comes from Thomas Aquinas. Now, in the end, I went for a different phrase entirely, and I just used my gold foil pen to engrave this onto the front of the notebook. People always ask me about this pen. Basically, you set this very thin gold foil on the front of the notebook, and then the pen has a heated tip, and so when you write on it, it gilds and kind of sets the gold leaf. I always get nervous for this in case it hasn't worked. I'm now going to pop this in my paper public. So I'm going to take out my media journal, which has served me very well. I will still add to that, but I wanted to try out a new method. I also love with the Loic terms that they have 2 different ribbons. I've now fully made my reading list, and I really would recommend going through and creating your reading list ahead of time if you are going to do a personal curriculum, because in my experience there were 3 months last year where I set myself a theme but I didn't take the time to actually plan a reading list, and my research was much more sporadic and I wasn't as diligent with keeping up with things. I mean, the benefit of creating a curriculum as opposed to just leading in the moment with curiosity, which itself is a wonderful thing, is that you have a structure that you create for yourself, and there's even though there's no accountability, having a list kind of gives you more accountability because you've got things you're actually working through. However, I will say as well that my list isn't ever a strict list. It's not a required reading list, it's a recommended reading list, because sometimes when you start reading it, you realise actually this isn't really interesting for me and this isn't relevant to my module, because you're the one finding these and you're the one deciding on them based on their abstracts. That's very different to when you've got a tutor who actually knows the scholarly field and knows what things are good. The other thing you can do, depending on what your module is to search up university reading lists like Victorian literature, and you can usually find quite a few reading lists which have been put together by an academic ready for a module course, and then you can literally just take books from that, because these academics know what they're talking about and they know what things are worth reading. So sometimes I will do that, but it really depends on the module that I'm choosing. So I've actually decided to show you through screen recording the full curriculum. As I was editing, I was just thinking it would be so much more useful probably for you just to see it. So skip past this if you're really not interested. My September theme officially is Female Victorian Education, looking at education reform in relation to women and how access to university education, for example, changed, and specifically my time frame is like 1860 to 1900 because it was a hugely transformative period. And by the end of the century you have women, for example, studying at Oxford, and you've got women's only colleges opening. So what year was Newman's College? Newman began as a house for 5 students in Regent Street in Cambridge in 1871. Lectures for ladies have been started in Cambridge in 1870, but there is so much change in terms of the access that women have to education, and it's something I've wanted to research properly for a long time, so this is my opportunity and my excuse to do it. So at the top here I've got my hours of work, because of course in a module, you know when they give you the module overview sheet and it tells you like this is how many hours you're expected to work on this every single week. So each module requires at least 4 hours of independent study per week. Work should be printed and filed in folder by the end of the working week, which is 5 p.m. GMT on Fridays. I will actually just contextualise this quickly. This is one of the things that I learned through doing the personal curriculum last year, that you need accountability, because it's so easy for personal study to fall to the wayside when other things come up, which is understandable. Of course that's going to happen, but for example I'd have a work commitment come up, or things would be very busy at work, or they'd be busy with YouTube, and the personal learning would fall to one side, because even though all of it's important, other things become more urgent. And sometimes that's unavoidable, and I think it's important to be flexible, and you don't want it to become like constraining and stressful and everything, but also can be something important to you and you might want to really make the time for it. The best way in my experience to do that was to kind of set internal deadlines so that it gave the work some sense of urgency. Like even though I knew I could override it if I really needed to, it meant that I was still working towards a deadline, a time frame, which is why I say the 5 p.m. GMT on Friday. And why I say file away in the folder. So this is the independent learning folder that I've got for this year. Last year I had a digital folder, so I'd have to complete like my research or my essay or whatever it was and drag it into this folder on my desktop by a particular time. I think paper is going to work even better. So the idea is I have to print the work, like print the essay, print the research by 5 p.m. And it's a bit like having to hand in a piece of homework or something. Honestly, the pretend of it works really effectively. It might not work for you, but if you're like me, then it will very much work for you. Then here we go into like a checklist, and I've got this for the benefit of the printed version, so I can just tick off each hour of work I do. I don't know if I'll actually end up using this table. I haven't made one of these before. And then this is the big thing. This is my overview of the female education module. So along here, I've just tagged it by week of the tasks that I need to do. And then this will be like so I can change that to done when I complete it. So I thought I'm just going to run through all of this. Please skip ahead if this is really, really boring, but maybe it can give an idea of what kind of things you can set as assessments, because that's a question that I got quite a lot this year. So for week 1, I'm predominantly looking at Victorian Oxford. I mean, the great thing about a module that you're creating is that you can really tailor it to whatever you find interesting. And I love historic Oxford, like Oxford's my favourite city, and I love learning about Oxford. And so I love the idea of learning about kind of Victorian education in Oxford. So my task for this week is to make a timeline of key events in Oxford that happened, which I'm going to make on Notion. I want to make a fact file of key figures in Oxford from 1870 to 1890, so that's going to feature like Oscar Wilde, who was studying in the 1870s, Walter Pater, who was a lecturer there. These are figures that I know about and I've learnt about because I did a module on like fin de siècle writing art and like art theory, which included a lot of Oxford figures, but I want to kind of look beyond the people that I already know about and see what other movements and kind of thinkers were operating like alongside. And I think it would just be really interesting to build a fuller picture of all of the conversations and debates and things that were happening in Oxford at the time. Then my main essay is an essay on responses to women's colleges and the opening of women's colleges. Who was disagreeing with it? Who was saying it was a bad idea? Why did they say it was a bad idea? which men were advocating for it, like Sidgwick, for example, I know was an advocate, but who else was advocating? Then a literature review, finally just a single notes page, which will have to go in that folder, of education style and the system in Oxford. I'm going to look at like exam papers for that. This kind of encapsulates like the three main tasks and assessments that I will usually set in a personal curriculum, which are an essay. The essays that I write will be like 1,000 words, they're not very long at all, but essays are a great way to synthesize information and like make sense of it yourself, and it also encourages or kind of mandates you to do extra research and to go down a rabbit hole that maybe you wouldn't have gone down, because as soon as you start writing an essay, you obviously go, oh, well, I don't know enough about that, and then you go and research that. And then a literature review where you'll kind of summarise all of the research which kind of has happened around a particular thing. Then a notes page is like the final common one that I tend to make. I did one recently, so I'll show you what they're like. I've got quite a few in here. My literature reviews are sometimes really messy, so this is a literature review on enchantment in children's literature. I kind of summarised key arguments from the different scholarly papers, just to kind of, I don't know, break the illusion of it. When I do stuff for personal curriculum, it does not look perfect in the slightest. Some of it is very like messy and a bit like all over the place, but it's only for you, and like you might decide to make it look very perfect and kind of format everything perfectly. I don't tend to do that. Oh yeah, here we go. So I actually did do some linking here to my novel, so I might blur some parts out of this, but this is like a research page of notes that I did on glasses and spectacles in the Victorian period, like especially the 1880s and 90s. And kind of the key thing with all three of those assessments is it's synthesizing and it's reframing information that you're looking at. So you're not just doing the research, but you're actively creating something off the back of it. Like creating a page of notes is reframing information. Writing an essay is obviously reframing information, and writing a literature review is reframing information, because you're putting all of these things side by side, which maybe haven't been put side by side. So when deciding on an assessment, I think that's the best way to look at it. Like, how can you synthesize the information? Like, how can you turn the information into something else? Then in week 2, I go into education reform and study methods, but broadly Victorian as opposed to just in Oxford. Then we go into week 3, which is on governesses. I'm quite busy in week 3, which is why it's a little bit more pared back. I just want to revisit Villette and note the idea of the governess. I want to do a literary analysis as part of that, which actually I should probably have written in. There's a book on governesses that I want to read. I can't remember what it's called. Oh yeah, it's this one. I'm going to order that on eBay now actually, because otherwise I will forget. Add to basket. And then week 4, I'm looking at something more theoretical. I'm looking at female learning versus male learning. I don't really know what I'm going to find with this one, and I'm excited for it though, because I don't know what I'm going to find. And I do really enjoy critical theory, so I'm excited to dive into that at the end of the month. And then down here I've got my reading list. This is really messy as well. You see what I mean about it not looking perfect? I've literally just like given the link and then written the title next to it, but some of them I haven't even written them fully. Like, this one is quite funny. Women as learners. Anyway, I will end the video here. I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I'm very excited for this year's personal curriculum, and I will try to share more of it as well. I feel like at the beginning of the year I shared a lot of it and then I just didn't. But thank you for watching again, and I hope that you have more than just a productive week.